Well, here we are back on LG Hockey Hotline, and we're bringing it live to you from a Saturday night, the night before playoffs begin in season 4 of the PSN side. And we have a lot to talk about. There are some very interesting playoff matchups. Um, Florida did not hang on to the President's Trophy. As we all know, Dallas was able to take that over. Minnesota falls down to third place in their division from first place over the last several weeks. Lots of stuff happened, and we're going to talk about all of it with you tonight. Moran, what's going on?
Oh, not much, man. Here we go. The real season starts tomorrow. We're into the playoffs. Teams have been set. Matchups have been set. President's Trophy has been awarded. And, we are ready to roll here with the playoffs coming up. We got some interesting matchups that we're going to break down here with help from the LG site, which does a great job of breaking the matchups down for you. We're going to kind of go into each one of them in depth and give our predictions. And, once again, these are just our predictions. Everybody else has their predictions. So these are just two of hundreds or thousands of predictions. So can't wait to get into it here. It's playoff time. And, here we go.
Yeah, I don't need any precursor to what I'm about to say about these series. Go prove us wrong if we pick against you. That's the fun part about the playoffs. And, it's really interesting how it played out, how we ended up getting some very interesting first round matchups. Um, Calgary forfeits 2 games in the final day to play against Arizona, so they don't have to face the Minnesota Wild, Blues, or Blackhawks. Um, Lots of interesting stuff going on. So, without any further ado, let's get into our first playoff matchup here because this is going to take up a lot of time on the show today. Let's talk about the Washington Capitals first round matchup here, and they will be facing off. Um, Starting tomorrow night. And before I get to that, I guess are the playoff games staggered again? To the Eastern Conference go off at 7 or at 9, and then the West at 10?
I would assume so. Yeah, I would assume they are. I'll go check here in
Yeah.
just a second.
So anyway, the first matchup we're going to talk about is Washington Capitals versus the Pittsburgh Penguins. Capitals, of course, bringing home the home ice advantage here. So Pittsburgh will have to post their lineups first for the first 2 games. And in the regular season, these two teams faced each other 4 times. Washington won that series 3-1. Um, and when I'm sitting here looking at the stats, um, Washington beat them in just about every category here, if not every category. I'm looking. Yeah, they beat them in everything: faceoffs, power play percentage, less penalty minutes, more time on attack. They outscored them 15-9, outshot them by almost 20. Um, Pittsburgh did out hit them 48-35. But when I go down here and look at the players, what's really interesting to me is Washington only has 2 guys that played Pittsburgh twice this season. Big Lammers has 2 losses against the Capitals in net, but everybody else on Pittsburgh except for Lind and the 724 sniper um, only have 1 loss against the Capitals. So what we'll see here in some of these playoff matchups is that uh, in certain cases you'll see that a certain line played against a team 2, 3, 4 times in a season, and other times you'll see a team that used 2, 3, 4 different lines depending on trades against teams, and that could really mean that when we're looking at these numbers, they might not totally hold true when it comes to a playoff matchup, of course. So, what's the first thing that jumps out to you, other than, of course, that Washington won the season series 3-1?
Well, the first thing that jumps out to me is that, Washington, did beat them in 3, of the major categories, and that's shots against, time on attack, or shots for that matter, time on attack and faceoffs. With Washington being so good in the dot, winning the faceoffs means you have possession, which leads to time on attack. Time on attack leads to shots. So, with Washington being more of a, they've had the puck more in this series, and therefore that's translated to more victories in this series as they lead this series 3-1. So if Washington could continue that trend and continue to get the faceoffs, to get the puck, to get into the zone and create that time on attack, which they have them out time on attack 68.4% to 31%. And when you're out time on attacking somebody that much, it usually leads to more shots, which then in turn usually lead to more goals. So I think offense is going to be the flavor of the night for Washington, and it's going to be on Pittsburgh to play that defensive style and counter strike Washington, because Washington's got a great offense. They've got the Rocket Richard winner over there in Clark's cog, and they're going to be coming at them looking to score a lot of points. So it's going to be on Pittsburgh to really d it up and counterattack against these guys. And I did check, and it is the Eastern Conference going off at 9 p.m. and the Western Conference going off at 10 p.m.
And just to throw another note on the Rocket Richard winner for Washington, not only that, but they also have GB 521 who led the league in points, so he'll be your Art Ross Trophy winner. And then on the Pittsburgh side, you got B Bunny, who finished third in the league in points and finished, I think, third in goals, if not second in goals, was way up there. So you've got three of the highest scoring players in the league going head to head in this series. Washington, obviously, what it seems like is that Clark and GB don't play together all that often. So in a general sense, you might be facing two of the league's top scorers in two separate games or four separate games, depending on how the series goes here. You might be seeing them come at you twice with two high scoring lines. And then Pittsburgh, of course, they're going to need to get some support for B Bunny. They're going to need to get guys like Carlson MVP and Lind 94 to step up and put more points on the board, help them score against this high-powered Washington offense, because Washington has proved all season that they can outscore you, and their goaltending hasn't been too bad either. They got Clancy and Mooner in net. But Pittsburgh does have, even though Big Lammers is 0-2 against the Capitals this year, Big Lammers finished third last year in the Vezina race for best goalie in the league, and is a very good goaltender. So, and of course you got Busy 313, who finished second last year in the Rocket Richard Trophy race. There's a lot of guys on this Pittsburgh team that are extremely good scorers. They're a very solid team. But it's going to be really interesting to see if they can keep up with this high octane Washington offense, and we'll see which goalies make the difference in this series as well.
Yeah, going back to the B Bunny, he did finish third in points. He finished second in goals. So, they definitely have some offensive power coming from B Bunny over there. But, back to the other side with Washington, you got three guys in the top 25 of scoring in the league, and that's GB 521, Clarkskog, and Nuge. So, with three, high-powered scorers like that coming at you, those guys could be staggered on three separate lines. So, it's going to be line after line, unit after unit of Washington coming in, whereas Pittsburgh only has one guy in the top 25, and that is, of course, B Bunny, who is no joke. He's one of the best scorers in this game. So he's definitely going to be hard to stop. Only lost 3 games in regulation this season with his unit. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see if the matchups how the matchups work out in this game. That's going to be imperative in this season, or in this series, I think, to get these to find out which one of these teams takes the upper hand. Matchups are going to be huge with these two teams, so I would expect a lot of offense in this series, and we'll see how the chips fall at the end of the week when we'll see where these guys end up.
Yeah, and just to go back to the stat that you talked about a little bit ago with time on attack and shots being directly correlating to each other, face-offs will generally lead to the same thing. You'll have the one-off games where you'll win every face-off and lose the game. But in this case, with Washington and Pittsburgh, Washington has a 54.2 face-off percentage to their 45.8 head-to-head this season. So another thing with Pittsburgh is to keep the puck off the stick of all these high scoring players for the Washington Capitals, they're going to have to get better on the draw and try and do their best to start the play with the puck so they're not forced to try and take it away.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be, it's going to be on both of these teams to keep possession of the puck in this game, because there's going to be so much offense out there. They're going to want to take that puck and control it and control the tempo of the game. You don't want to get in a shootout with either one of these teams. So, it'll be interesting to see how the flow of these games go, whether or not they get in the run and gun mode, or whether or not one of the teams slows it down and, goes to try and play the possession game. So we'll see, which one of these teams can come out on the top at the end of the series. It's going to be one to keep an eye on, that's for sure.
Yes, it is. So I am going to look to see. I can't remember exactly what my picks were for every one of these, so I'm going to look them up. I'm going to give my picks the way that I picked them on the site. For this season's playoff thing here. So I'm going to pull that up real quick and try and figure out what I picked. I'm pretty sure I picked. I'm pretty sure I know what I picked, I should say. But Moran, go ahead and start it off. What do you think is going to happen in this series?
Well, in this series, it is the 1 versus the 8. Or wait, is it the 1 versus the 8? Yeah. Let me look back at this.
Yes.
Yeah,
well,
it's the 1 versus the 8. So, or 1 versus 7. Sorry.
7, 2-7.
But it's going to be. I think it's just going to end up being too much offense for Pittsburgh to handle in this series. I think it's going to be a decent series. I think it's going to be pretty good. But I do see the Capitals taking this series in 6 games, 4-2 over Pittsburgh. I just think that with the amount, the depth of the Chicago Capitals, the Washington Capitals team is too much for Pittsburgh to handle in this series. I think Washington's taking it in 6 games.
Yeah, me too. That's hilarious. I think I accidentally clicked Pittsburgh when I was doing this, so my post actually showed Washington and Pittsburgh both in 6. But I am taking the Washington Capitals in 6 games. I think their depth from line 1 through line 3 is a bit better than Pittsburgh's is. I do think Pittsburgh's line has the first line has the ability to steal a couple of games here, and I think they will do that. But ultimately, I think the Capitals will be a little too much to handle at the end of the day for the Pittsburgh Penguins. I have Caps in 6.
Yeah, that's right about where I got them too, man.
Well, so let's go ahead and move on to our next series here. And our next series will be our first Western Conference playoff matchup, and that will be between the Colorado Avalanche and your President's Trophy winning Dallas Stars. And we'll give Chief the pat on the back that he so desires right now for winning that President's Trophy.
I mean, come on, let's not beat around the bush here. The guy took over a Boston team that was in shambles last year, put a very solid team out on the ice. Got moved over to the Western Conference this year and just continued to do his thing. It made probably the second most trades in the league, but still is right there at the top winning the President's Trophy. So, I mean, let's give credit where credit's due here. Chief's done a great job with his teams, no matter how people feel about him, because there is some different opinions of Chief. I always like Chief. I think he's a good dude. So, it's my hat's off to him, man. He came over to the Western Conference this season, and he did his thing, and he went out, and his team won the President's Trophy with making all those deals. So that's a hell of a job by Chief, man. I really got to tip my cap to him.
Yeah, this series to me is when I look at both of these teams and I look at the season series, which was 4-1 for Dallas. In all honesty, I fully expect Dallas's high-scoring offense to take this and run away with this series. Now, when you look at the statistics, shots on goal were only separated by 2 through 5 games. They were 55 Dallas, 53 Colorado. And then face-offs, Colorado has the edge, 54% to 45%. But the time on attack is a 56.2% to 43.8% difference. And Colorado's taken 37 penalty minutes in those 5 games compared to 19 by the Dallas Stars. So in other words, that translates to Colorado going 0 for 9 on the power play, and Dallas going 2 for 16. That's kind of crazy to me, with Dallas being one of the most high-powered offenses in the league as a team, to only score twice on 16 power plays. But if you give Dallas anywhere close to 16 power plays in this series, there's no doubt in my mind that they're not going to have any trouble winning any of those games that they've got a high number of power play chances on. This team has proven that they'll go out and score. They have one of the best contracts in the league on Easton 17, who they were able to trade for from Minnesota back in like week 5. They brought in Bill 1492 from Toronto. BBK 24 is having an incredible rookie season up in the NHL. D. Perrins on D has been outstanding this year. And of course, last season's number 1 draft pick, Bone Crush, is still rocking it hard for the Dallas Stars this season. Dallas made a trade late, right at the trade deadline, to bring in Just for the Show. They are stacked from top to bottom on this lineup. And, even in net, 00 has had one of, probably a top 3 goalie season in the NHL this season, behind maybe only Kearns. But Leadhead and Matt 4029 have been really good for Dallas, especially Matt. He was 4-0 against the Avs this season with an 86.7 save percentage, and a 1.5 goals against. So for me, when I'm looking at the numbers here, even though Colorado has Ghost MK, counterattack, J Mars, McLovin, Ryudo, their GM, counterattack, their owner, this whole team that they have here is a solid team. I just don't think they match up well against the Stars.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Colorado was a team that was kind of, they came out, they started off really good. They had a way better season than they did last year. They've gotten themselves to the playoffs here, but they've kind of gotten into the playoffs limping, it feels like, a little bit, from the things that I was reading and the things that I was seeing, but they're here. So, you got to tip your cap for them even to be here in the first place. But they draw one hell of a matchup here in the first round against Dallas. And, Dallas is, the top scoring team in the league. They're the President's Trophy winning team. The stage is set for, a crazy upset, but most likely the stage is set for a sweep as well. So we'll see here. Like you said, you touched on the power plays. If you put a team like Dallas on the power play, they're going to score. They're going to eventually find a way. And if they don't score on the power play, they're going to generate enough offense during that power play to finally break through only seconds after it ends. So this is going to be a pretty good matchup to keep an eye on here. But I think Dallas is just going to be, they're going to be too tough. They're going to overpower Colorado. Hats off to Colorado for getting here, though, after last season. They stuck with it. They're building in Colorado. So, hats off to them. We'll see what happens in this series. Ain't nothing a sure thing in this league. We all know that. But, coming into this game, if Colorado can continue their dominance in the faceoff dot, maybe they'll have something here. Maybe they can control pace of play and keep the puck out and not play that run and gun. You do not want to get in run and gun games against Dallas because they will eat you alive. Got a lot of point scorers on that team. They've got a lot of guys who can bury it, and their defense is top notch as well. So that's a damn tough draw for Colorado in the first. This series is going to be one to keep an eye on, but I think it's going to go rather quickly. I definitely think Colorado may get a shot in on them here, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take Dallas in 5 games in this series. They're going to win this just like they did the season series, 4-1 for me.
Yeah, the big factor in this series is going to be how hard is Colorado going to try and ride 0-0? He's been incredible all season long, and Dallas is the highest scoring offense in the league. They will need him to be outstanding, but they are going to have to do everything they can to keep the puck at the other end of the ice. Because if you get blasted with 25 shots in a game and you stop 3 or 4 of them, or you let in 3 or 4 of them, to me, that's still an outstanding performance by the goaltender, but getting peppered with 25 shots means you're probably not putting that many on the other end. So for me, I think Dallas will overpower the Avalanche. I'm getting my broom out for this one. I think Dallas is going to sweep them in 4 games. Colorado could turn this around. They play a lot of tight games. They could steal a few here. They could even win the series, like you said. But the way Dallas has played, especially as they came on late in the season and made that run to get to the President's Trophy, I think they probably have gotten hot at the right time, and I don't expect them to slow down in this first round matchup.
Well, and looking at it, I mean, Dallas was 26-6 in 1-goal games this season, whereas on the other hand, Colorado was 18, 12, and 4. So, Colorado's used to playing those 1-goal games, and so is Dallas, but Dallas has seemed to find a way to definitely gain a point in those games, which is meaningless in the playoffs, as we all know. You go to overtime, you go until it's over. But Dallas has a little more seasoned record in those 1-goal games, as they've gone 26-6 in those games this season. So, like you said, 0-0 is a great goaltender. He can steal a game for you, but can he steal a series for you? That's what remains to be seen here from these two teams. We'll see if 0-0 gets the call and is ridden here for the max amount of games. I'm not sure if he will be or not, because their backup goaltender is pretty good as well in Colorado. So, we'll see if Jade, is it Jade? Do they have Jade in Colorado still? I don't think so.
He was in Winnipeg.
Yeah, it looks like 0-0 is going to be the one they ride here. So we'll see if he can get it done for Colorado. He can get it done. He's a hell of a goalie, but that Dallas offense coming at him shift after shift. Well, not shift after shift, but possession after possession is going to be, can they stand up to the waves of offense that Dallas is going to bring their way? Remains to be seen.
Yeah. So moving on here to our next matchup, we have one of the best matchups for the first round, in my opinion. Here, you got the New Jersey Devils against the Philadelphia Flyers. Two teams that very easily could have won their division and been facing one of the wild card teams, but instead they finished second and third and end up facing each other. What's extremely interesting about this is that Philly didn't lose much this season, but they have an 0-4 record in their season series against the Devils. The Devils beat them all 4 times that they played each other. That's extremely interesting to me. Now, when I look at the statistics, they're almost dead even in everything. Time on attack, New Jersey has 52.7 to 47.3. Philly is leading in the shots, 51.2 to 48.8%. And then face-offs are almost dead even, 50.5 to 49.5% in Philly's favor. The shots were 44 to 42. New Jersey out hit them. The time on attack was only 3 minutes different through 4 games. Penalties were fairly even. Philly scored 2 power play goals on 8 power play chances. New Jersey scored 0 on 6. But the real interesting thing to me here is that the Devils outscored the Flyers 16-6 in those 4 games. That is, a 10-goal differential there is really large, especially when you're talking about a 4-game series. And not that many people played against each other. So you got guys like Rhino, who played in net for all 4 of these games for the Devils, went 4-0. Official Mark and Odie were 3-0 against the Flyers this year. Novak for Prez was 3-0. They got a lot of guys that have seen this team, and when you look at Mesmerize and Saucy, this is probably the only team they played this year that they don't have a win against, because they beat everybody else. So this is a very interesting series for me. Moran, what are your thoughts on it?
Well, this is going to be, these 2-3 matchups, I think are going to be some of the best matchups, especially for the first round here. These 2 versus 3 seeds are, I mean, it's go time with these teams. I love these matchups. It's the second and third best teams in a division going head to head. Phillies came out of the gates this season playing extremely well, and down the stretch, it almost seems like they teetered a little bit, not much, but they were out there at the beginning of the season, and but they've held strong. They finished in the third spot in the Metro, so but the Devils, they lost their owner, a few weeks back, as we all know. They lost a big time leader on that team. And at the time they lost him, the Devils were right up there with the top teams in the league, and they've slid just a little bit as well. So, these two teams. That's not to say either one of these teams is weak, because that's not the case. Both of these teams are excellent. So, these two going head to head is definitely going to be something to keep an eye on. As obviously New Jersey is one of only 2 teams, maybe 3, that handed Mesmerize and I believe Saucy their overtime losses this season. So, that not many teams have beat those guys. So we'll see if they can, if New Jersey's up to the challenge here in a 7-game series. But there's some great matchups here. There's some good offense. There's some good defensive players out there. There's great goalies in Pelly and Rhino. So
You just called Pelly a great goalie. Sorry, just kidding.
I like Pelly a lot. But you got 2 good goaltenders going head to head here. So this one's going to be a series of depth. What do the third lines do in these series? I think that's going to what it's going to come down to here, because I think their top lines match up well against each other. So it's not on me. I don't really know their play styles that good, because we only saw each team twice this season. But as far as looking at it, yes, New Jersey did dominate the season series, but Philadelphia is an extremely tough team. All of these categories that you see, well, 3 of the main categories with face-offs, time on attack, and shots are all almost dead even or within a couple percentage points of each other. So, this one's going to come right down to the wire. I definitely see this being a back and forth series. This is going to be one where, maybe the home team comes out right out of the gates with that home ice advantage, getting to put their lineups in only an hour before game time. Maybe that's going to be the thing that gives one of these teams a boost. But on the other hand, I could see, the home team here, which I believe is going to be New Jersey, coming out and getting the win at home in the first 2 games, because they get to play the matchup that they want. They get to dictate the series right out of the gates. But then on the other hand, coming back, Philly will have the opportunity to do that for a couple of games as well. So they might be able to steal 2 games back from them there. But if Philly can go in there and steal one of these games out of the gates, away from New Jersey in this series, and steal home ice advantage from them, and steal that advantage of being able to adjust your lines only up to an hour before game time, that's going to be huge in this series. So if Philly can come out and get that done and take away the home ice against New Jersey, I could see them possibly turning the tides in this series and winning this series. But as it stands right now, the way that I see this series going down and the way that it's gone down throughout the season is I think that New Jersey is just going to prove to be too good for Philadelphia to stave off here. I think it's going 7 games. I definitely think it's going to come down to 2 Game 7 lineups. And, the question is which Game 7 lineup is going to be stronger, and which Game 7 goalie is going to be able to stand to the task and punch their card to the next round. I think that's going to be the New Jersey Devils, and I take them in 7 games here.
Yeah. I look at these teams, and New Jersey is, especially on defense and goalie, they're stacked. They made a move to bring in Tendy, who has had an all right season, right just above 500 on the season, but is a very good player. Odie is having, possibly a Norris Trophy type season. If not, he's definitely in the consideration for it, along with Official Mark. Those 2 as a D pair have been outstanding together. And, New Jersey was really lucky when they did lose Claus, that Odie was their GM, because he knows what he's doing. He knows a lot of people in this league, and he is an outstanding player himself. He is a J Claus type player as a defenseman. If I'm not mistaken, I think he averaged right about 2 points a game as a defender this season, which is incredible. And when I look at these teams, Philly, yeah, they had it tough against New Jersey, losing 4 this season. But for me, I think the playoffs play a little bit different. I think Downey and Checkmate will have these guys ready to play, and I'm actually going to pick the Flyers to win this series in 6 games. With the caveat that, as good as I think the Flyers' #1 line is, I think if this goes 7, New Jersey's got the better Game 7 lineup. But I think Philly will find a way to get this done in 6, and I'm looking forward to watching a lot of these games, because it's going to be super fun, especially when you got guys like Mesmerize, who's one of the best defensive centers in the league. Doesn't put up a ton of points, but is almost impossible to catch him out of position and get those defensemen on an odd man rush. So, I think Downey will want some payback for the loss and the OT loss he had against them this season. I think Philly in 6.
All right, mark it. Philly in 6. That's the first time we disagree on a game here. So, we'll see how that.
We have to make it interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
So moving on to our next matchup, they're going to get even better here for some of these matchups, and this is definitely one of them. Our next Western Conference matchup involves 2 Western Central teams, toughest division in the league by far. I think that was proven again this season. The Blues versus the Blackhawks. And what's really interesting is the Colorado Avalanche called up a randomly assigned veteran this week and ended up having to forfeit 2 games. One of those was to the Blackhawks, and it didn't affect the Avalanche as far as their playoff seeding or their standings. Didn't hurt them. They weren't going to miss the playoffs for that or anything. But what it did do was giving Chicago that extra 2 points. They were 1 point behind the Blues. Gives Chicago home ice advantage in this series. And they finished 1 point ahead of the St. Louis Blues. Now, that could be huge. St. Louis has a very deep team. They have one of the best decors in the league from top to bottom, from number 1 through number 6. Crofto has been outstanding in net for them. They've got one of the best rookies in the league, the best rookie in the league this season in Penguins hockey. But they go up against guys like CC Piper and PTP, and those guys who are coming fresh off of a cup win last season. Didn't start off the season the way they wanted to, but they were right back here ready to fight, and ended up finished 2nd in their division after sitting in that 7th wild card spot for most of the season. The final week, they were able to win some head-to-head games and move up and finish 2nd in this division. And with the season that Kearns is having, this series looks to be an extremely interesting one.
Yeah, this series is going to be fun. This is going to be one to keep an eye on. If you're bored on a Sunday night or a Monday or a Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday, see if you can't find one of these streams. And just a real quick step outside here. Please stream your playoff games, guys. I know we don't have to say that to everybody. There's been a pretty damn good amount of games streamed this year. Get these playoff games streamed so people can watch them, especially this St. Louis-Chicago series. This is going to be a knockdown drag-out between these 2 teams, which is a rematch from last season. These 2 teams met in the division finals, and they really went head to head this season. Chicago comes back after having won a cup, and St. Louis comes back retooled with a much stronger team than they had last year. So this one's going to be one that's definitely going to be one to keep an eye on. You got one of the best top defensive centers in the league in Piper, and Chicago with class act and the boys. Kearns having an outstanding Vezina type season for Chicago this year. The season series was very close. It was 3-2 in Chicago's favor. And as you look at those three statistical categories again, with the face-offs, time on attack, and shots, they're all just about dead even. But I like what you said about the one of the top rookies, if not the Calder favorite this season in Penguins hockey, who's just come in and taken this league by storm. And he's going to be a hell of a force to reckon with on the Blues side as well. So you got two of the top centers in the game. It'd be nice to see these guys matched up against each other in a game 7. I think that would be highly entertaining and something that should be on the site for all to watch. This one's tough to call. I think this one's right down the middle. It's a far better matchup than it was last season. I think St. Louis has a little bit of a chip on their shoulder coming back, knowing that Chicago sent them to the golf course last year. And, I think St. Louis comes into this series with something to prove. And, they're taking on Chicago in the first round here. So this is going to be one to keep an eye on. You got a lot of good players in this series. The amount of good players here is just, the list is huge. It almost seems like every player on each one of these teams is an all-star. These are going to be games to keep an eye on. Everything's dead down the middle. They both like to possess the puck. They both like to make passes in the offensive zone and move the puck around to get good scoring opportunities. They're not gonna run and gun like a lot of other teams are. As we see, Chicago is the best defensive team in the league this year, giving up the fewest goals out of any team. And that's not just because Kearns is having a Vezina type season. That's because Chicago as a whole plays defense. They play puck possession. They hold on to that puck and they try to wear you down. But then again, so does St. Louis. So this is going to be a hell of a series to keep an eye on here as these two teams go at it. It's the Stanley Cup winning team versus the team they knocked out to get to that Stanley Cup last year, to get to the Western Conference Finals, that is, and eventually move on to win the Cup. So, this one's going to be a fun series. I'm on the fence about this one. I don't know. This one's going to be tough. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say that St. Louis gets their redemption and they take this series in a shocking 7-game victory in this game 7, I think. But on the other hand, I think Chicago could win this series 4-3 too. But I'm just kidding. I take St. Louis in 7.
Well, when I'm looking at this, one of the interesting things to me is Chicago, like I said, has PTP. They, of course, have Stevie 66. They picked up Serpy 13. Kearns set an LG record this season with 11 shutouts. That final shutout did come against the Blues in their final matchup of the regular season. That's a big win right there heading into the playoffs to face these guys, to go out and get a shutout. But what's interesting to me is having guys like Jeff and another top rookie in Gucci Mane 50. Those guys beat the Blues, 3 games between the two of them. But Piper, I think hands down is the best center in the league. 1-1-1 against the Blues this season. Only 1 win against them and a loss and an overtime loss. And Class Act played against them 1 time and lost that game as well. That's extremely interesting to me. And that when it comes to playoff time, Piper's going to be there. He's going to do his thing. He goes out and wins games almost exclusively. This guy loses like 3 games a season on a regular basis. It's unbelievable. He may have just hit double-digit losses in his career through 4 seasons. So, for me, when you look at these rosters, like you said, there's just, all-star after all-star up and down these lineups, and it's going to be extremely fun to watch. For me, I am picking. It's hilarious. It's another one I must have accidentally clicked. I'm picking the Blues in 6 games in this series, though I think the Blackhawks could win in 6 because that's apparently what I accidentally clicked. I am picking the Blues because I think the Blues as a team have played outstanding from the beginning of the season to now. I don't really feel like they've had a lull in their play. Chicago has been kind of like a roller coaster. Started off kind of slow, picked it up and then fell off a little bit again. Change ownership, made some moves, get their roster set, and then played really well the last couple weeks to get themselves in that second spot. And with St. Louis, I think they have one of, if not the best rosters for matchups as the away team. I don't really think for them it matters who they put out there and who Chicago matches them with, because I think their defensive core is that deep. So I don't think the matchups will play as big a role in this series because of that. But for me, I think St. Louis in 6, but I think
Yeah.
it's going to be a great series.
Yeah. I mean, this one could literally go either way.
And it could be a 4-game sweep for either team too. Who
Yeah,
knows?
it could. But you got to look at Chicago as well and be like, my God, they were 23 goals below 200 this season is what they gave up in 85 games. Nobody else in the league was under 200. That's the kind of team defense and that's the kind of goaltending that this team has gotten this season. Chicago's not a team to sleep on. Do not get me wrong. I think they might even be in better hands than they were at the beginning of the season at this point in the season. So, they've got nothing but talent over there. And I think the thing that's going to win this series for St. Louis is, bitterness. They still got that bad taste in their mouth from last season when Chicago punched their ticket to the golf course. So I think that raw emotion, is what's going to win this series for St. Louis. I could be wrong. I believe I picked St. Louis in this series last year as well, and Chicago just continued to blast on through the playoffs and take the hardware home at the end of the season. So I could be wrong, but this is going to be a great series. And if you're not playing and you're clicking on this website, Chicago, St. Louis, stream these games, people are going to want to watch them. I definitely want to watch them. So good luck to both of you.
And for the first, for Sunday and Monday night, here comes my stuffy nose again. And Sunday and Monday night, the games will be staggered. So if you're on an Eastern Conference team, you won't be playing at the same time as the Western Conference teams. Get on and catch some of these matchups between the Blues and the Blackhawks and some of these other ones that we're about to talk about, because they're going to be really good. And just to throw this out there, so Piper's not too terribly mad at me, I did purposely pick against you guys in every single playoff matchup last season too. Just want to throw that out there. So so that being said, we've spent enough time on the Blues and Blackhawks. I'm sure we'll have plenty to talk about with that series next week. Let's move on to another matchup that I think is going to be a little bit more clear cut. And I'm talking about the team that we thought was going to win the President's Trophy, the Florida Panthers, who ended up just a few points shy of doing that, as a lot of these teams ran up on them in the last week and a half of the season. But the Florida Panthers versus the Carolina Hurricanes, and the Florida Panthers have, I think it's safe to say, the best defensive core in the league. They got young Jack over there. They have Logical, who's probably playing as their third line lefty. He's on a $1.25 million contract. This guy is ridiculously skilled. They have Sloshy over there, of course. I mean, their entire decor is ridiculous, and they've got some outstanding forwards as well. What are you looking at first as far as the breakdown, the face-offs and that stuff while I pull this up?
Well, when it comes to Florida, they walked through the regular season this year and they kind of fell asleep at the end of the season a little bit. That's not to say that they didn't finish strong, but they had a lead there for quite some time. And, they just fell short, 3 points short of that President's Trophy. And not to say, just real quick to go back to Chicago, they made it all the way to 108 points from where they started the season off. So hats off to Chicago twice for that. But back to Florida here. Florida has dominated this season's series when it comes to statistics. Now, that would tell you that Florida should dominate this series. But What you don't see is that in this season series, Carolina won this series 2-1.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's because Florida was throwing their third line out, whatever. But I mean, these top three statistical categories and team statistical categories in face-off percentage, time on attack, and shots aren't even close. All right, Florida beats them in the face-off dot 66.2% to 33.8%. They also beat them in the time on attack 70.3% to 29.7%.
Equate that to minutes.
The time on attack?
Yeah.
Time on attack was 27 minutes, 51 seconds for the Florida Panthers to 11 minutes, 45 seconds for Carolina.
In 3 games.
They almost tripled them up on time on attack time. And then when it comes to shots, Florida outshot them 45-23. They doubled them up there.
Yep.
Just at first glance, you'd be like, oh, yeah, Florida dominated this series, but they didn't. Carolina found a way to go 2-1 in this series throughout the season, which is crazy to me. Also, because when you look at this series in 3 games, Florida took 3 penalties. They have 6 penalty minutes. On the other side, Carolina had 26 penalty minutes. How the hell did they win these games? And when you ask that question, it's got to come down to their goaltending. And, that's the only thing that I could think of. But, I mean, this one's weird when you look at it at first glance. This is going to be a tall task for Carolina, to have a sniff in this series. But they do have a sniff. They've made some trades, at the deadline to bring in basically an entire unit. So they've got guys back together on that Carolina team that have familiarity with each other. So, this could be an interesting series. You never know. Anything is possible in this league, as we have found out. But when you look at it at first glance, it looks like Florida is going to dominate this series, but that just has not been the case throughout the season here.
Yeah. I actually do want to pull up a thread that was created. I got to find where it's at, but basically broke down the top
Florida
20,
even outscored them 12-10.
Right. The thread I'm talking about, I can't remember who made the thread, so I'm going to have to find it here. But basically broke down the top 20 point scorers in the league and equated their points to giveaways per point. And just for example, the league's leading point getter, GB521, was by far and away the most giveaways as well. He had like 5-point-something giveaways per every point that he had. Led the league in giveaways. Carolina made a trade to pick up Illy Philly and his left winger, Kev 86, Triggered Kev, was drafted last season. He has the best percentage for points to giveaways in the league this season in the top 20. He scored 80 points, and he's got less than 2 giveaways per point, which is an incredible statistic. Here it is. It was by DeBard. Top 25 point leaders. Give this thing a read. It's extremely interesting to check this out, and I want to give you the exact statistic here.
Comment on that thread so it'll put it back to the top over here on the main page, would you?
Yeah, I will. Comment. So he's got Kev was 80 points and a 1.93 giveaways per point. GB was 4.15, not 5.15. Penguins hockey was 2.65. B Bunny was 2.74. I want to give a shout out to Flying Red from the Arizona Coyotes, who was 83 points and a 2.11. He was second best on this list. It's one thing to go out and score a bunch of points, but it's a completely other thing to also be taking care of the puck while you're doing that. So I just wanted to throw that statistic out there, and it's going to be an extreme challenge for him this series to keep that that way because he's going to be trying not to give away the puck to the best defensive core in the league. I didn't even mention the fact that they have Odessa Steps, aka BJ. Their third line center, I believe, is JT91, who's had an outstanding season. King Clutch didn't even play against the Hurricanes this year, meaning that they didn't face each other, so they haven't even seen Florida's top offensive line. They did see Young Jock, Sloshy, BJ, and Logical. Jock was part of that win that they had against each other, but
Chris is on this list too.
yeah, and Riz is on that list as a top 25 point getter. I think when it comes down to this series, the way it's going to break down, I got to go look to see what I put because I know it was short. Yeah, I picked this to be my other sweep. I think Florida's going to sweep the Hurricanes. I think their depth is just that good. They're facing the 8th seed. Yeah, the 8th seed in the Eastern Conference in the Hurricanes, who didn't even know if they were going to be in the playoffs until the final day. It's going to be, there's probably going to be some close games in this series. But I think Florida's going to be too much to handle. When it comes down to playoff time, Florida usually turns it up a notch, and to turn it up a notch from what they did in the regular season could be dangerous.
Yeah, very well could. When Florida wants to turn it on, especially with the team they have this season, you better get out of their way, or you're going to get run over. This team is stacked. They have great defensive centers. They have centers who can win faceoffs. They have guys who possess the puck. They have guys who stop people from getting into the zone and play outstanding defense. Their neutral zone play is outstanding. Florida is a complete team, and I think they are the hands-on favorite to win the Cup this season, even though they didn't win that President's Trophy. I think this is a team that's been solid all season long. I think Carolina is going to have their hands absolutely full in this series, but I got to give it to Carolina. They've been playing playoff hockey for 4 weeks here. The whole second half of the season, Carolina's been playing playoff hockey, battling to get in, battling to get that last spot, and they finally pushed through and broke through and made the playoffs here with that late season push that they had. So hats off to Carolina for getting here. It's no easy task, but to draw Florida in round one, that's no easy task either. I think this series is going to be over quick, but I think Carolina is going to get one shot in on Florida, and Florida is going to win this series, but it's going to take them 5 games to do so.
You think Carolina's only going to get one shot this whole series? I do want to give the Hurricanes a shout out because we thought for a while there that there would be one, possibly 2 playoff teams in the East with below 500 records, and they did not finish below 500. They finished 40, 37, and 5, going on a pretty good run to end the regular season there and squeak into the playoffs. They won their last 5 games of the season, though I will say, if I'm not mistaken, there was a little bit of a disappointment in this race. I believe the Hurricanes made it on the final game of the season by a forfeit win, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, it was their second to last against the Islanders. The Islanders forfeited their first game on Thursday night, and then they beat the Capitals 5-2 to end the season. So, they're
beat to get into the playoffs. I mean,
what's interesting is they beat the Penguins 6-4 on Tuesday, and then they played the Blue Jackets, the Rangers, and the Islanders. So they got to face 3 non-playoff teams in a row to end the week. And then they faced the Washington Capitals, and they ended up beating them 5-2, playing with a little bit of confidence there. But like I said, Florida has been a little too much to handle for most of the teams in the Eastern Conference all season long, except for this one. 2-1 down in the series right now, but that'll just be that'll just be more fuel to their fire. They'll go out there, and I think they'll get the job done quickly. So let's go ahead and move on, unless you have anything else to say about that one. Let's move on to the Western Conference playoff matchup between the first place Pacific team, LA Kings, and the team that I thought was actually going to win the President's Trophy, who fell to third over the past couple of days, the Minnesota Wild. Like I said, that Western Central Division is ridiculous, top to bottom. It ended up being Stars, Blues, Blackhawks, and Wild. All four of those teams had a chance at the President's Trophy in the final week of the season, all in the same division. And that made these playoff matchups, or these division matchups last week, extremely interesting. So,
And
without any
extremely important.
and extremely important, as you see here, um, they but the difference here is that regardless of what they did, if the only way they weren't going to face a team in their own division in the first round of the playoffs was if they fell to that the first wild card spot, and they did that. But their reward is to play against the league's hottest team over the last 3 weeks of the season, the LA Kings. So without any further ado, let's get into this playoff matchup.
Well, this playoff matchup here is another one, that this one might as well be a 2 versus a 3. Minnesota was a strong team all season long, even though they went through the ownership turmoil with Chisnasty being removed from the league and a new owner taking over there. They were still sitting at the top spot or battling it out for that top spot in the Central with those 3 other teams you had mentioned in Dallas, Chicago, and St. Louis. 5 teams made the playoffs out of the Central. So obviously that division was fighting and clawing tooth and nail to get into these playoffs this season. But on the other hand, so are a lot of teams in the Pacific. And LA was a team that just went out and straight got it done in the second half of the season. They made a few key trades. Winnipeg basically gave them a few players for free because they didn't want to finish their season. So LA picked up some great players. Good on them for doing so and taking advantage of that. But they basically went out. They were the best team since the break. They went from worst to first, basically. They had started to make their move way earlier than the trade deadline as far as winning games. But they completely dominated a lot of teams. I mean, speaking from personal experience, I mean, we went on a 12-game winning streak at one point during the season, and we still didn't catch them.
we got to 1 point behind them, and then played a head-to-head matchup and lost to them. And that head-to-head matchup we played with them began their run of literally the same thing that New Jersey did to end last season, winning like 25 of 26. LA did something extremely similar here to end the regular season and put themselves in a position to face, I guess that's Calgary decided, like, instead of trying to get these last 2 wins and have to face Minnesota, let's face a team that wasn't just fighting for the President's Trophy. And I can't say I blame them when I look at it, honestly.
Well, yeah, I mean, but the thing that I'm curious about, and I'm going to check right now, is in this season series, Minnesota won it 3-0.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm curious if that happened towards the beginning of the season. Yep, there's a win in week 1 against LA, and then there is a win in week 5 versus LA.
Fairly close games, all 3 of them too.
Yeah, and those were kind of before LA got on their hot streak. LA is a completely different team than they were week 1, that's for sure. But they're definitely a different team than they were week 5 as well. LA has got a solid team from top to bottom. They're really good. They came on strong. They won the Pacific. They did a hell of a job coming back from the season, from the first few weeks they started off with. And, this is going to be a matchup right here that could go 7 games. I mean, even though the season series wouldn't suggest that. Season series would say that Minnesota is going to win this one in 4. But that's definitely not going to be the case, and I would never say that because LA has been playing the best hockey out of all teams this season. When you break it down 50%, or when you break it down face-off percentage, exactly dead down the middle, 50%. When it comes to the actual face-offs, 34-1 for LA, 34-1 for Minnesota. When it comes down to the penalty minutes, 10 for LA, 10 for Minnesota.
Which doesn't equate, though. one for 5 on power plays for Minnesota, 0 for
Yeah,
8 on
that's
power
kind
plays
of
for the Kings. So something's screwed
something
up there,
screwy there.
but it is all pretty even except for
Yeah,
shots and
yeah,
hits.
and shots. I mean, shots are shots. You know, you could have a lot of time on attack and not be generating as many shots, but you're still possessing the puck in the offensive zone. But that's pretty close too. You know, the time on attack is close. LA out time on attack them 22 minutes to 20 minutes. But you know, if you are in the zone possessing the puck, you know, common sense would tell you that you are going to outshoot the other team, but sometimes that's not quite the case. But LA did outshoot them in this season series 45 shots to 31. So this one's going to be tight. I think this is going to be a great series. I like Minnesota's team a lot.
That's what he said.
I think that I think Minnesota's deep, and
That's what he said.
but the LA Kings, they're a really good team. They're deep as well. So this is another one of those series that could. I mean, there's a lot of great matchups this season in the playoffs. I think there's a lot of evenly. A lot of even matchups in the playoffs this season. It really worked out an interesting way with the season 4 playoffs here. So, you know, it could be anybody's game going into this series here.
Yeah, I have 2 quick points to make on this. One, Nerdy Mamba is 3-0 against the Kings this season. Played them all 3 games, won all 3 games. Tom Sakaplaya is 2-0 against him. KQ's 2-0 against him. They played together on defense there. Hayes played him once. Now he missed last week. He had a work schedule change or something, had to miss a few games last week, and not sure if he's going to play in this series, but he was up through 8 weeks was tied with Clark for the Rocket Richard Trophy for most goals in the season. Will Hayes play for Minnesota? That's going to be a big factor in this series.
That's going to be a huge factor in this series.
The other factor between these 2 teams is that the LA top line with Theos did not play against Minnesota. Minnesota did not see them one single time. So that will be different. They'll have their top line to come in and play against the Kings will have their top line to come in and play against a really good Minnesota team who has not seen that line yet this season. That could make all the difference in the world when you're talking head-to-head matchups in the playoffs and trying to shut somebody down. If you haven't seen them, it'll be a little bit tougher. So, and then Alonzi for the Minnesota Wild in the one game that he beat them in, I believe they traded their other 2 goalies that did play against the Kings this season. As you said, they were early in the season. Alonzi was 1-0, 85.7 save percentage on 14 shots and a 1.92 goals against. He's going to see a lot of games like that in this series. The Kings have a very high-powered offense, at least from their top couple of lines, and he will see a lot of shots from that Kings team. He's going to have to put up these kind of numbers, if not better, to help the Wild win this series. So, and we all know what Bielski can do. If Bielski's entire season with New Jersey last season was the same as his last 3 weeks, he probably would have won the Vezina. I think he was like 20-0-1 or 18-0-1 in his final 3 weeks of the season last season, 3.5 weeks for the New Jersey Devils. Bielski has been on a tear with the Kings over the last few weeks, playing a bunch of games and shutting teams down. So this will be interesting. For me, I do have the Minnesota Wild winning this series, but I think it's going to take 7 games. I think this is going to be like the Blues Blackhawks series. I think that the Blues Blackhawks series on paper is probably a little bit more interesting than this one is, but as far as action-packed games and things of that nature, I don't expect this one to be any less entertaining. I think this will be an extremely fun series to watch, and I think Minnesota takes it home in 7 games.
For me, what it comes down to in this series, since these 2 teams are so evenly matched, I think it's right down the middle with these 2 teams. What this series is going to come down for me is momentum. Which team was hotter coming into the playoffs, and that clearly goes to LA as Minnesota kind of fell down the rankings a little bit. LA climbed up them and they continued. I mean, didn't we count it up last week? They got points in like, what was it, like 19 out of 20 or 24 of 25 games or something ridiculous like that.
It was something crazy.
They've been pointing for weeks straight here, so I'm going with the hot hand in this one. I'm going to take LA in 6 games. I think they're taking this series in 6, 4-2 against Minnesota. Minnesota is going to come out and they're going to play them tough, but I think LA is just playing too good right now to lose and be out in the first round.
Yeah. Now, the only other thing I would say is that the Kings finished 4 points ahead of the Minnesota Wild, 109 to 104 points, but that 4-point difference is equivalent to the final 2 games of the season for the Kings were forfeit wins against the Ducks and the Oilers. So take those 2 forfeit wins away. I would say that these teams were pretty much dead even all the way up and down as far as the entire season went. And, they both overcame some massive adversity to end up with extremely good records going to the playoffs to face each other. It's kind of fitting that they face each other in this round. So the Kings lost 3 games in their final week of the season, 1 game the week before, 3 games in week 7, 3 games in week 6. So back in week 5, they were 3-6 on the week. Actually, I think 4 or 5 of those were overtime losses as well. So they picked up points in those games. The Kings have not had a week worse than 6-3. Their best one being 8-1. Since this, I think 8-0-1 actually. I think they lost to Pittsburgh in OT. This team has found a way to pick up points. Now, they did finish with 109 points with 9 overtime losses. Overtime losses will not help them in the playoffs. Nothing for points here. It's got to be wins. So we'll see what happens. Let's move on to the next matchup, which will be from the Eastern Conference. Our final matchup is between another real-life rivalry, the Buffalo Sabres and the Boston Bruins. Now, the Sabres ended up with the first overall pick in the draft this season, and they picked up Skills Pay Bills. I think he was easily the consensus number 1 overall pick, and he went 0-3 in the first week of the season, but then proceeded to play the way Buffalo expected him to play the rest of the way. So looking at this matchup, they faced each other, I believe, a total of 5 times. Yes, 5 times. Boston won this series 3-2 in the season. But Buffalo beat them in a good amount of categories here. Moran, break this matchup down.
Well, when it comes to this matchup, at first glance, face-off percentage goes to Buffalo at 55-44. Time on attack goes to Buffalo at 59% to 40%. And what that means here is you win face-offs, that equates to time on attack. Puck possession time in the offensive zone. And when you break it down to the actual numbers of it, Buffalo out time on attack Boston 38 minutes to 26 minutes, and they out face-offed them 68-54. Now, this is one of those cases where that time on attack didn't necessarily lead to shots on net, as Boston did end up out shooting Buffalo in the season series 61-53. They also ended up outscoring them 17-10. So, it does look like Boston has the upper hand when it comes to getting pucks on net and putting pucks in the net. So this will be a series to keep an eye on. Like you said, Buffalo has one of the top defenders in the league in skills.
Couple of them.
Oh yeah, and
Schroyer. Schroy Daddy.
They have arguably
Arizona legend.
The 2 best defenders in the league, definitely top 5 for these 2 in my book. But Boston does have some offensive scoring power on their team as well. So this is going to be an interesting one. Buffalo kind of felt like, from things I was reading and things I was seeing, it kind of felt like Buffalo was a little unsure of whether or not they were going to make it, and they made it fairly easily. But they kind of stumbled a little bit down the stretch, I guess, for lack of a better term.
They were sweating it out.
They were sweating it out. They were squeezing a little bit, but this is a team that is stacked. This team is stacked from top to bottom with players like Foot, It's Johansson, J. Cool, LaPlante, Nick K12, Ryan, Schroyer, Swartz, Teagill, and then of course,
LaPlante,
yeah,
amazing.
yeah,
Johansson, yeah.
I already mentioned all those guys.
Schwartz.
Um, you know, these guys are all extremely good players. So if this team can find a little bit of magic here in the playoffs, I could put this team up against anybody in the league, and that's no bullshit here. I think this team is stacked talent-wise. If they can find the right matchups and the right combinations of players here, they could be extremely dangerous in this playoffs. I would not write Buffalo off by any chance or any stretch of the imagination to put a run together here with the talent they have on that team alone. It'll be interesting to see if they can, put everything aside and go out and play hockey and win games and be available for Ryan to get the right matchups in this series. But, on the other hand, they are coming up against a Boston Bruins team that is extremely stacked as well. They have the reigning Norris Trophy winner and Fumanchizi on their team. They have Cons in net, who's arguably, one of the best goaltenders in the league. Sean's done a great job with this team. Season in and season out, they've always been a contender, as this is the old Dallas Stars team that was moved from Dallas to Boston. So there's a lot of good players on this team as well. They made a late season trade to pick up Corsi 88 from the New York Rangers. They have Hypey on this team. I believe they made a trade to pick up during the season. Marcus is somebody that came over from San Jose to come over to this team. They have RV Clutch, who is an outstanding scorer. He can take over a game simply by himself with the puck in the offensive zone. So, this is a well-balanced team, excuse me, as well. So this could be a very, very interesting series to keep an eye on, as it's, power versus power here. This is two really good teams going at it. It's another one of those 2-3 matchups that I love. That could end up being one of the best matchups in the entire playoffs here. So this is definitely going to be one to keep an eye on. It's very tough for me to call. But when it comes down to it, who has the home ice advantage in this series is going to be the question. And I do believe that is Boston. So, Boston's going to be able to dictate play to Buffalo and go out and match the lineups first in this series. Now, like I said before, if Buffalo is able to go in there and, pull out a win in Boston and steal that home ice advantage away, then that puts Buffalo in a really good spot here. This is going to be a tight series. I see this series going 7 games. There ain't a doubt in my mind. I love these 2 and 3 matchups. I think they're the best matchups in the playoffs. But I see this series going 7 games, and I do see Buffalo finding a way to get it done and move on to round 2 of the playoffs here. And, continue to make a push here and see if they can't match up against them Florida Panthers in the second round.
Yeah, what a treat that might be. The interesting thing here when you're looking at these breakdowns, the Skills Pay Bills did play against Boston 3 times this year, and he was 0-3. He will be looking to get redemption from that, obviously. And, we played against T-Gill the other night. He was in net, and we could not fucking score on him. It was ridiculous. Just to make a comment on the comment he put in the thread the other day. But Boston is going to ride Cons to the max number of games he's allowed to play. So Buffalo is going to have to find a way to steal a couple of games against him. And when they do get one game in the first 4 and another game in the rest of the series, when it goes that far, without Cons in net, they're going to have to take advantage of that and try and win those games. They're going to have to put every effort into winning the games Cons isn't in, because Cons will win almost every game that he's in on his own. He's one of those game-changing goalies who can get it done all by himself, and he's got a really good decor in front of him and a good team in front of him too. So for me, I knew we were both going to do this. I'm picking Buffalo to win this series in 7 games. I think it'll be a close series, but ultimately, I think Buffalo does have the better talent on their roster, and I think guys like Schroyer and Skills pay bills. J. Cool at center. These guys will find a way to get it done with them. Their talent is rivaled by very few in this league, and of course Schroyer, with his Stanley Cup playoff experience, won a cup in Buffalo in season 2. Will be giving Ryan some good tips on how to run his playoff matchups, and to do what is best for the Sabres going forward. So I got the Sabres winning in 7, and we'll definitely see how that plays out.
I think this is going to be a good series. We'll see if Buffalo can't capture that magic from season 2, without a doubt. But a quick question for you, back to Minnesota. You picked Minnesota, right? And how many games? Sorry, I missed that one.
Minnesota in 7.
Mini, 4, 3.
Mini,
Okay.
mini soda in 7.
a mini soda.
So let's go ahead. And move on to this week's power. I'm just kidding. We'll move on to our 8th and final first round playoff matchup, the Arizona Coyotes and the Calgary Flames. Now, Calgary wanted Arizona in the first round. There's no question about that. They got the matchup they wanted. Arizona finally squeaked into the playoffs at the end of the week. Were able to win enough games and get it done. And Edmonton did lose some points, but even with those points there, Arizona still makes the playoffs based on the way it finished. So here we have an in-division matchup, another 2-3 matchup, and I think these teams match up very well against each other. I'm going to try my best to talk about the series as if it's another, so I will be saying they and them as opposed to us, as much as possible. Arizona won the season series against Calgary 4-1. They outshot them 57.1% to 42.9%. Time on attack, Calgary had the edge at 54.7 to 45.3. In faceoffs, they were pretty much dead even, 50.7% Arizona, 49.3 Calgary. Arizona outshot them 76 to 57. And the one interesting thing here is Arizona took ridiculous amounts of penalties during the regular season. Tons of penalties. In this series, though, they only took 14 penalties and gave up 5 goals. And that's just the same as the story for the rest of the season. Can Arizona stay out of the box will be a big factor in this series against a Calgary team that definitely at least their top 2 lines, if not all 3, have some very high-powered scorers with, Big J, Frost. DeBard had an outstanding season for them. I think he actually picked up about a quarter of his points in those 2 games in Week 7 on Sunday when he picked up about 23 points in 2 games. But these teams, as far as, even though it was a 4-1 series win for the Coyotes this season, these teams play each other extremely close. And, to me, when I look at these rosters, I don't really see where there's a huge advantage except for Arizona's goaltending needs to be better than they were, because Calgary's goalies are both really good, and Pat Dean and Bernatchez. We're going to need Zach Diesel, aka Coma White, to step up and have a good series. Same with Affordable Dreams, aka Mr. No Skills Hockey, to show some skill in this series and win some games. So, Moran, how do you see the Arizona Coyotes and Calgary Flames matchup breaking down?
Well, I think this is another one of those 2-3 matchups. I really like this matchup. In all honesty, I think this is a good matchup for Arizona, and it's a good matchup for Calgary. I think these two teams are incredibly equal, even though the point total at the end of the season wouldn't tell you that. But I think there's been a lot of good games between these two teams this season. Not a lot of room to breathe. These teams have been all over each other in every game they've played this season. As you can see, the sheer amount of players that have played for both of these teams in these five matchups. The fact that Arizona came out 4-1 in this series at first glance and looking at the stats is kind of shocking. I'll be honest. When I first popped this open today, I took a glance at it. I was shocked. I didn't think we, had gone 4-1 against Calgary. I thought, if anything, it was 2-2 at best. But that's how close these games have been all season. Calgary has, been a thorn in our side all season long. They were another one of those teams when we were going through our nice winning streak there. They were doing the same damn thing, and we could not gain ground on them. So that's just a testament to the depth of that Calgary Flames team. I think this is going to be a good series, one to keep an eye on. I think Calgary, may have a little bit of the upper hand here with some of the experience, with some of the Xbox guys that they have being around. And this is only Arizona's second time to the dance in the club's history here. So, we'll see if that, does anything for either team here. But I think this one's going to be a close series. I really do. I think the matchups are going to be key in this series, just like every other series that we've talked about. Whoever gets those first couple of games and gets the matchups they want, is going to have a huge advantage in these series. So, this one's going to be one to keep an eye on. If if you're around the site, go ahead and stream one of these games, because I guarantee you they're going to be entertaining. They always were last season when we had the Howls going, but this season's going to be a lot different. It has been a lot different. Calgary's got a hell of a team here. So, with players such as Frost, like you mentioned, they have Frost, they have Big J Aote, they have Guy. The list goes on with this Calgary Flames team, and they also have a guy who came back this season. Where is he? Oh, I'm thinking of a different team, but Bernatch is in net for Calgary. They have Terry Toronto. This is a very, very stacked team that Calgary has. DeBard, hats off to you, brother. We're good friends outside of this. We play games all together, or all the time together on the league. So hats off to you for having a good season this season, DeBard. Just don't go having a good season against us this week.
Yeah. I'm not rooting for your postseason hopes in the first round. And Terry Torin, the one and only, also had incredible seasons for Calgary, putting up tons of points.
Yeah, so this is going to be a good matchup to see how the matchups themselves go here. This is obviously the matchup Calgary wanted. So, we'll see how it ends up. I'm not going to go ahead and this is the one series throughout the entire season when we do our breakdowns of the two teams. This is the one series that I do not give a prediction on. I don't like putting a prediction out there because I don't want to set any, I just leave them alone. I like these series. I like these two teams going up against each other. I think it's going to be a good series. I can say it may go the distance here. We will see. But I'm not going to make a prediction on this and stay true to form as we have every time we've called the playoffs. And
yep.
So
I'm going to give a prediction for this series, and my prediction for this series is going to be watch it. It will be fun. And, I predict it's going to provide a lot of entertaining hockey. Will not give a prediction on the final in the series either, at least not out loud. So everybody always has their own opinion of what's going to happen, but you're right. I do not want to set an expectation or a thought or any direction on this series. Don't need our guys listening to us and, why'd you pick Calgary in 4? But anyway, should be a fun series for sure.
Yep.
And that ends our breakdown of all 8 of the first round matchups. This will be our longest playoff breakdown show as it involves the most playoff matchups. I hope next week's show is cut in half time ways since there's going to be half as many teams. But without any further ado, we are moving on to this week's LG Hockey Hotline Power Rankings. And moving right into it, we are looking at the goaltenders. Rounding out the list this week is a goalie who is going to be what I think could be a difference maker in that Florida Panthers series. You have last year's Hart Trophy and Vezina Trophy winning Schneider 24 had a 4-1 week this week, helping Carolina capture that playoff berth that they so desperately wanted. He had 2.79 goals against and a 70.2 save percentage. Coming in the number 9 spot, you have Bernatchez for the Calgary Flames going 4-2. 2.34 goals against and a 7.4 or 74.5 save percentage with 2 shutouts. In the number 8 spot, you got Trap MC for the Colorado Avalanche, who went 2-1 on the week with a 2 goals against average, 79.3 save percentage with a shutout. In the number 7 spot, you got Matt 4029 for the Dallas Stars, went 5-1 on the week, helped the Dallas Stars capture that elusive President's Trophy, bringing it back to the West Central. He had a 3.0 goals against average and a 79.1 save percentage. In the number 6 spot, with a 2-0 record on the week for the Columbus Blue Jackets, you have SW Bobcats 9. I'm assuming he either got called up or was an ECU for those couple of games. Had a 1.75 goals against and a 78.9 save percentage. And for a team that was out of the playoffs before 2 weeks ago began, it's nice to see one of their guys show up here on this power ranking list with a couple of wins for them. In the number 5 spot, we have another difference maker in the playoffs for Boston. King Khan's going 4-2 with a 2 goals against, 82.1 save percentage. In the number 4 spot with the league's 3rd star, you got No Chance 85 going 5-1-1 on the week with a 2.55 goals against, 76.9 save percentage, and 1 shutout. In the number 3 spot, there's a goalie that has been on this list multiple times this season, but has not really been talked about all that much for the Toronto Maple Leafs. He went 4-1 on the week with a 2.26 goals against and an 84.6 save percentage. Did all he could to help Toronto make the playoffs, but they fell just short. That is Spark Plug Nick. He was the league's 2nd star. In the 2nd spot with the league's 1st star, you got Mooner 2014 for the Red Hot Washington Capitals going 6-1 on the week, 2.0 goals against, 84.1 save percentage with a shutout. And then in the number 1 spot, you got Cape Mishlong, whatever, Cape My Schlong. That's what it is. 2-0, 2-0 on the week with a 0.5 goals against. And if you're putting your schlong there, never mind. 93.8 save percentage and 1 shutout. Well, my number 1 star for the week is going to go to Mooner 2014. He's the only goalie on this list that played 7 games. He won 6 of them. He went 6-1. He did get a shutout, 2 goals against, and an 84.1 save percentage. So Cape My Schlong almost wins it just for sheer cheek on the name. So that is it for goalies. Moran, move on to the defense.
Yeah, well,
you bastard.
Yeah, poopy pants. Rounding out the defenders this week in the number 20 spot, we do have Full Throttle from the Ottawa Senators, who only did play 2 games this week. Picked up a couple of points, was a +1, and the number 19 spot is Scarcella 89 from the Edmonton Oilers, going 3-0 on the week, picking up 4 points, +4 on the week. And the number 18 spot is Moran Akonda going 2-1 on the week with 8 points, a goal, and a +8. In the 17th spot is official mark 07 for the New Jersey Devils, going 3-1 on the week with 8 points, no goals, all assists, +5 on the week. In the 16th spot is Inglis from the Tampa Bay Lightning, going 3-1 on the week, picking up 6 points, two of them goals, and a +5 on the week. In the 15th spot is Nature X from them red hot Carolina Hurricanes, going 3-0 on the week with no points, which is a little strange, and a +8 on the week. So that's an interesting one. In the 14th spot is Shirk from them Columbus Blue Jackets, going 2-0 on the week, picking up 4 points. No goals, 4 assists, was a +2. In the 13th spot is the current owner of the St. Louis Blues, and he's got that team really playing good over there. That's Rye the Beholder, going 3-0 on the week, picking up a couple of points, with one of them being a goal. Was a +3 on the week. In the 12th spot is Ryudo 2337 for the Colorado Avalanche, going 3-1 on the week, picking up 9 points, one of which was a goal, and a whopping +12 on the week for Ryudo. In the 11th spot is Woy from the Washington Capitals, going 4-0 this week, picking up 1 point. But in the 10th spot, rounding out the top 10, is Sick Boy from the Carolina Hurricanes, going 3-0, picking up 2 points, was a +8 on the week. In the number 9 spot is Benz for those red hot LA Kings, picking up the 3rd star of the week for LG. In the 9th spot, going 3-0 with 3 points, +4 on the week. In the number 8 spot is Liggy Biggs from them Calgary Flames, going 2-0 on the week with 4 points, no goals, +5 on the week. And the 7th spot is Big T 757 for those red hot LA Kings, yet again, going 3-0 on the week, picking up 3 points, +4, no goals. In the 6th spot is QC Chief 27 for those Florida Panthers, going 2-0 on the week with 4 points, no goals, +4. And in the number 5 spot, picking up the 1st star for LG this week, is entry 2 for the Montreal Canadiens, going 3-0-1 on the week with 8 points, 3 of which were goals, +9 on the week. In the 4th spot is PTP for the Chicago Blackhawks, going 2-0 on the week, picking up 3 points, 2 of which were goals, +5 on the week for PTP. And
Good luck.
rounding out the top 3 here, God is Nowhere, going 2-0-0 on the week with 4 points, 3 goals, a +5.
Hold on.
Yep.
God is nowhere or God is now here?
Oh, yeah. Either one.
Well, they're completely different, though.
Yeah, well, it could have 2 meanings. It's a double meaning.
Anyway, go ahead with his D partner.
Coming into the 2 spot is You Want to Be Me, going 2-0 for the week, 5 points, 3 goals, +3 on the week. And then in the number 1 spot, for defenders this week is Young Jack, going 2-0 on the week with 9 points in those 2 games, 4 goals, and a +5 on the week. For me, this one's tough because you had guys who played 4 games this week. You had guys who played 3 games this week. You had, guys who played 2 games this week. So this one's really tough for me. It's tough to give it out. So I'm going to go ahead and give it to myself. Just kidding. I'm going to go ahead and give this to Young Jock. He killed it in his 2 games he played this week with 9 points, 4 goals, 5 assists, +5. He has the highest points per game average out of everybody this week, even though I hate to give it to him because he did only play 2 games. But if he would have played a third, I'm sure he would have been heads, and he would have been far over top of everybody else here. Now, if he would have played 4 games, he would have been that much further in front of everyone. So mine goes to Young Jack this week for defenders.
I do have a question on this, though. How come Woy is the only one who is 4-0 on this list? He had a +10, which is second best on this list. He only had 1 point, but how's he come in behind 10 other people?
Yeah, this one was weird.
Yeah, very interesting.
I don't know if it was the 4 games that threw the auto, the auto delegation of this or whatever they have, the algorithm that puts this out every week. But This one was weird. There's a lot of
Yep.
interesting, a couple guys with no points on the list, which is, usually, and that's the thing, with defenders being a defender, it's like, man, they really only reward points as a defender, that you don't get rewarded for playing good defense.
Right.
But here's a case where, I don't know, guys had, one or no points and they still made it on the list. So that's kind of cool, I guess.
Yep. Coming in at the number 20 spot for forwards is Ovechkin, 8 junior for the Tampa Bay Lightning. Goes 3-1 on the week with 11 points. 8 of those are goals and a +5. In the number 19 spot, you got Gergs, 28, going 2-1 with 13 points, 7 goals and a +8. In the number 18 spot, Bob Swagger coming in for those red hot Washington Capitals, 2-0 on the week, 8 points, 3 goals, +8. Played right wing and center. In the number 17 spot, Hosang, 66 for the Nashville Predators, goes 3-1, 14 points, 6 goals, and a +5. Then you got the third leading point getter in the league, B Bunny for the Pittsburgh Penguins in the number 16 spot, going 3-1 on the week. Also had 14 points, 6 goals, but a +9. In the number 15 spot for the Winnipeg Jets, you got Voltage Fusion, 3-1 on the week, 13 points, 8 goals, +7. In the 14th spot, you got Jay Jr. for the Montreal Canadiens, went 2-0 on the week, 6 points, 4 goals, and a +4. In the number 13 spot, Bone Crusher went 4-0 on the week, 13 points, 4 goals, +8. In the 12th spot, Serpy 13 going 3-0, 9 points, 3 goals, and a +10, played center and right wing for the Chicago Blackhawks. In the number 11 spot, Tanger 77-58 went 2-0 with 8 points and 3 goals with a +5 for the New York Islanders. In the 10 spot, your league's leading point getter with 109 points, GB 521 went 3-0-1 on the week, 17 points, 8 goals, and a +5. In the number 9 spot for the Carolina Hurricanes, Reddy with 2-1 record, 13 points, 9 goals, and a +2. In the number 8 spot, Orioles Rule 44, 2-0 on the week, 8 points, 5 goals, +8, played right and left wing. In the 7th spot, Pacioretty 67 went 2-0 on the week with 7 points, 4 goals, and a +7, played center and right wing. In the 6th spot with the league's third star is Hypey of the Boston Bruins, went 3-0-1 on the week and led the league for the week in points with 19, 9 of those being goals, a +13, and he played right wing and center. In the number 5 spot, Lethal Weapon 7 went 2-0 with 8 points, 5 goals, and a +4. And the league's second star coming in the number 4 spot for the Florida Panthers, King Clutch 77, 3-0 on the week, 13 points, 8 goals, and a +5. In the number 3 spot, NWA 99, 2-0 on the week, 11 points, 8 goals. 8 goals and a +4. In the number 2 spot, you have Rukshan NHL going 2-0 on the week with 11 points. 4 of those were goals and a +4. And in the number 1 spot for the league this week is Bill 1492. He picked up the league's first star going 4-0, 17 points. 11 of those were goals and a +9. For me, the first star this week, I'm going to have to drop it back down, I think, and go with Hypey, who went 3-0-1 on the week for the Boston Bruins, but picked up 19 points, had 9 goals, a +13, and he played right wing and center for those Boston Bruins.
Yeah, I was looking that one over, and it was, I mean, that's another tough call on all those. I mean, there's so many people that you could pick there that it's just, it makes it tough when there's 4 games in a week. That's for sure. There's definitely no doubt about that.
Yeah, there was at least 2 or 3 people on that list that weren't shitters. So there was a tough decision. So, yeah, that'll do it for this week's power rankings. And, I guess an hour and 40 minutes into a non-special show, it's probably time to not be in the show any longer. So this week we've got our playoff matchups. I'll break those down again real quick. We have the Capitals and the Penguins. the Flyers and the Devils, the Hurricanes, the Panthers, and then the Bruins and Sabres. All of those games will get kicked off at 9 o'clock Eastern tomorrow night. Eastern Conference will get the playoffs started. And then at 10 o'clock Eastern, we'll have our Western Conference matchups, which will consist of the Colorado Avalanche versus the Dallas Stars, the St. Louis Blues versus the Chicago Blackhawks, the Minnesota Wild versus the LA Kings, and the Arizona Coyotes against the Calgary Flames. If you are in the playoffs, good luck to you. Have a good week this week. We'll talk about it next week for you. If you're not in the playoffs, don't disappear from the site. You're going to see a lot of really good playoff hockey this week. Take a look at it. Watch some of these teams. It's going to be super fun to watch. So we will see you all next week. Thanks for joining in.
Yeah, I just want to go ahead and say to everybody, the regular season for season 4 is now in the books, and it was an interesting season. It was full of highs and lows and weird stuff and bannings. So it was an interesting season. To those teams that didn't make the playoffs, keep grinding, boys. There's always season 5. Come back with your heads held high. To those teams that did make the playoffs, good luck down the road here. And round 1 starting this Sunday, so we'll see you right back here next week for a recap of round 1 of the playoffs in season 4 in LG. Have a good night, everyone.
Hey, play the song. Play the song. Come on, play it.